because certain bishops thought that it was beneficial to compromise. If they compromised, criticism was less. If they compromised, they could make more converts. So they saw it as a good thing to compromise on truth. Don't we see that today? If we want to do evangelism, just water down what you've got to say, and then people will believe you because you're not stepping on their toes quite so hard. If you want people to attend church and fill up these empty seats, then do things that they like. Bring in loud music, bring in song and dance up on the stage, and whatever it takes to bring people into the church, we can do that because at least then they're sitting in the pews. We win that way, right? Well, paganism wins, but God doesn't win. So at this time, Christians were pronounced atheists because they were destitute of temples and altars and victims and priests and all the pomp in which the vulgar pagans supposed the essence of religion to consist. So because the Christians met in homes or in small little meeting places, they didn't have a temple that they went to, they no longer offered sacrifices, they were considered atheists. What? Doesn't your God want blood sacrifice anymore? And they said, no, the blood sacrifice has already been offered. It's Jesus Christ. This onus was put on the Christian church. So in order to get rid of being labeled in a bad way, they thought, well, what's the problem with having a temple? I mean, why not? They adopted pagan temples. The idols that were sitting in the pagan temple, they said, well, we'll just call that one Peter, and we'll call this one Mary, and we'll call that one John. It doesn't have to be any of the pagan names that were on there. We'll just change the name. And they did. The next statement is from Moisheim, who has written quite an extensive ecclesiastical history of the church, and he said, it is certain, well, actually both these quotes are from Moisheim, it is certain that to religious worship, both public and private, many rites were added without necessity, and to the offense of sober and good men. Now, sober here means without excessive extremes. It doesn't mean that they're not drunk. It means that they weren't drunk with the wine of Roman Babylon. Here in the New Testament, we find once again that the church is brought under the control of Babylon. And we see that title in chapter 18, don't we? On this Roman church is labeled Mystery Babylon, the mother of harlots. Actually, that's Revelation 17:5. Ignorance of the Bible was commonplace during the reign of the papal church. From 538 to 1798, for 1,260 years, the church was kept away from the people. When the Protestant Reformation came along, they tried to bring the people back to the church. They tried to bring the church into line with true biblical thinking. But like we said earlier, when those original Protestant reformers died, the churches, instead of moving on in their study of the Bible, they developed creeds and went right back to the Roman way of doing things. All this apostasy did not happen without God sending warning after warning after warning. That's what the trumpets were. Warnings against what the church was doing. When we get into the next three, actually it's just the two because the seventh trumpet is the second coming of Christ. But when we get into those, we'll see that even the work of Islam was a work of calling to repentance. Final summary. Trumpets were used to announce the coming of the Day of Atonement. The seventh trumpet will sound when the Day of Atonement is complete on this earth. Declare the day of Jubilee and freedom. That will be a time of freedom for all humans, everyone on this earth, because when that final trumpet sounds, everything that Adam did will be undone. He sold humanity into slavery to Satan. He gave up his dominion over this earth. All that will be restored. The culmination of all events of the great war between Christ and Satan will take place at the sounding of that seventh trumpet. It will also be the coronation of Christ as King of Kings and Lord of Lords. This is a summary. I have a handout that I'll give to you. And of course it'll cover the last three trumpets that we're going to take into consideration next week. And for those that are interested, this is a partial list of my bibliography in this study.